What if I told you that Morocco, a country often called the postcard-perfect blue city, is about to rewrite Africa's geopolitical future? Yes, Morocco, not the West, not China, but a fellow African nation, is stepping in to rescue the Sahel from economic and political suffocation. Let that sink in for a moment. Imagine a region, home to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, choking under trade blockades, crushed by Western-backed sanctions, and struggling to survive amidst political upheaval. Now, imagine a lifeline. Not one dangled by global powers with their strings attached, but one offered by a neighboring country with a vision for true African solidarity. That's exactly what's happening. But how will things be put together? Let's find out. The Sahel is no stranger to hardship. For decades, this region has been at the mercy of geography, politics, and a global system that seems designed to keep it in perpetual struggle. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, rich in natural resources, but poor in infrastructure, have long been trapped in a cycle of dependency. The absence of direct access to the sea has forced them to rely on their neighbors for trade, a costly and precarious arrangement that has only worsened with time. And then came the coups. In the last few years, military takeovers in these nations turned an already fragile situation into a full-blown crisis. ECOWAS, supported by Western powers like France, responded with a barrage of sanctions aimed at restoring democracy. On paper, the goal was noble. In practice, the results have been catastrophic. Trade blockades have brought commerce to a standstill. Food, fuel, and medicine have become scarce luxuries, leaving millions on the brink of starvation. Prices have skyrocketed, and local markets have collapsed under the weight of restricted supply chains. The sanctions, rather than pressuring these nations' leadership, have instead punished ordinary citizens, those least responsible for the political chaos. But the problem isn't just economic, it's deeply political. For years, Western powers have used aid and trade agreements as tools of influence, keeping the Sahel nations tied to their apron strings. This dependency has fostered resentment, and in recent years, that resentment has boiled over. The anti-Western sentiment is rising, and calls for self-reliance are growing louder. It's a moment of reckoning for the region, one that demands bold and immediate solutions. Enter Morocco. While the West dithers and debates, Morocco is taking action. It all started with Morocco's alliance with Traoré, and now with a plan centered around the Dakhla port, a billion-dollar infrastructure project that promises to connect the Sahel to the Atlantic Ocean. Morocco is offering a lifeline that doesn't come with strings attached. It's a gesture of solidarity, a practical solution, and a strategic masterstroke all rolled into one. But why Morocco? Why now? And how exactly does this plan work? When King Mohammed VI announced Morocco's plan to connect the Sahel to the Atlantic Ocean, it wasn't just an infrastructure project, it was a masterstroke of strategic thinking. At its core, Morocco's vision is about solving a problem that has defined the Sahel's struggles for decades: its isolation. But this plan is not just about moving goods from point A to point B. It's about redefining how African nations interact, trade, and grow together. At the heart of Morocco's initiative lies the Dakhla port, a billion-dollar project located on Morocco's southern Atlantic coast. More than just a port, Dakhla is designed to be a hub of opportunity. Its location is no coincidence. Positioned to bridge the gap between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, it provides the perfect gateway for landlocked nations like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger to access global markets. But here's where Morocco's brilliance comes into play. The port is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Surrounding the Dakhla port will be a network of roads, railways, and industrial-free zones that will connect the Sahel directly to the Atlantic. This isn't a standalone project. It's a complete ecosystem designed to boost trade, attract investment, and foster economic diversification. Imagine a farmer in Burkina Faso who grows millet, one of the region's most important crops. Right now, transporting that millet to a global market involves navigating a labyrinth of borders, tariffs, and logistical headaches. By the time it reaches its destination, the cost of transportation has eaten away most of the profit. But with Morocco's infrastructure in place, that same farmer can transport his millet via efficient road and rail links to the Dakhla port, where it can be shipped directly to Europe, the Americas, or Asia. It's not just faster, it's cheaper and more reliable. The industrial-free zones near the Dakhla port are another stroke of genius. These zones are designed to attract foreign and local investors by offering tax incentives, streamlined regulations, and state-of-the-art facilities. Picture a Nigerian company that mines uranium, one of the region's most valuable resources. Instead of exporting raw materials at rock-bottom prices, the company can set up shop in the industrial zone, refine the uranium locally, and export a finished product at a much higher profit margin. This is how you create value and jobs within the region. But Morocco's vision doesn't stop at economics. The initiative is also about building trust and fostering unity across Africa. For decades, the narrative around African development has been dominated by Western aid programs, many of which come with strings attached. Morocco is flipping that narrative on its head. By stepping up to help its neighbors without waiting for Western approval, Morocco is demonstrating what African solidarity can look like in practice. It's also worth noting the diplomatic finesse behind this plan. Morocco isn't imposing its vision on the Sahel. It's working in partnership with its leaders. By aligning its efforts with the priorities of countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, Morocco is fostering a sense of shared ownership over the project. This collaboration isn't just practical, it's symbolic. It sends a powerful message that African nations can, and should, solve their own problems together. Of course, this vision is not without its challenges. Building the necessary infrastructure will take time, money, and political will. There are also logistical hurdles to overcome, from negotiating trade agreements to ensuring the security of transport routes. But if any nation is up to the task, it's Morocco. With a track record of successful projects like the Tanger Med port, now one of the largest and most efficient ports in the Mediterranean, Morocco has proven it can turn ambitious plans into reality. So, what does all of this mean for the Sahel? Simply put, it's a lifeline. But it's also more than that. Morocco's initiative isn't just about solving immediate problems. It's about creating a foundation for long-term prosperity. So, what's really happening in Africa? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. More than talking about change, we need to talk about what's causing the change. In African leadership, few figures have captured the imagination of the continent quite like Ibrahim Traoré, the 35-year-old president of Burkina Faso. Young, dynamic, and unapologetically defiant of Western norms, Traoré has become the face of a movement seeking to free Africa from the shackles of foreign dependency. His endorsement of Morocco's ambitious Atlantic Initiative is more than just political alignment. It's a bold declaration that Africa can solve its problems without waiting for handouts from the West. Traoré's rise to prominence has been meteoric, fueled by his commitment to African sovereignty. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso has turned away from traditional Western aid programs, choosing instead to align itself with like-minded nations advocating for self-reliance. For Traoré, Morocco's initiative is a perfect fit. It's not just about economic relief for Burkina Faso, it's about setting an example for the entire continent. At a high-profile conference in Marrakech, Traoré was unreserved in his praise for the Dakhla port project and Morocco's broader vision. Calling it a lifeline for the Sahel, he emphasized that this initiative is a crucial step toward breaking free from economic isolation and forging a new path for the region. But Traoré isn't just making speeches, he's taking action. Under his direction, Burkina Faso has already begun forming task forces to coordinate with Morocco on implementing the necessary infrastructure. This hands-on approach is emblematic of Traoré's leadership style: practical, decisive, and focused on results. What makes Traoré's involvement so significant is the political weight it carries. In a region plagued by instability and mistrust, his endorsement lends credibility and momentum to Morocco's initiative. It signals to the world, and to the people of the Sahel, that this isn't just another development project doomed to languish in bureaucracy. This is a movement with real backing, real urgency, and real potential to deliver. But Traoré isn't acting alone. His counterparts in Mali and Niger have also thrown their support behind the initiative, recognizing its transformative potential. Together, these leaders are presenting a united front, one that challenges the status quo of Western-dominated trade and aid systems. Their message is clear. Africa doesn't need outside powers to dictate its future. It can, and will, chart its own course. This collaboration between Morocco and the Sahel's leadership represents a shift in how African nations approach development. Instead of looking outward for solutions, they're looking inward, and to each other. This sense of solidarity is crucial, not just for the success of the Dakar project, but for the broader vision of African unity that leaders like Traoré champion. At the heart of this unity is a shared understanding of the Sahel's potential. Despite its challenges, the region is rich in resources and talent. Traoré and his allies see Morocco's initiative as a way to unlock this potential, not by relying on external aid, but by building the infrastructure and partnerships needed for self-sufficiency. This is about more than trade routes. It's about empowerment. Traoré's vision extends beyond economics. He views Morocco's initiative as a way to foster stability in a region that has been rocked by political upheaval. By providing a clear path to economic recovery, the Dakar project offers hope to millions who have grown disillusioned with the promises of Western-led interventions. It's a chance to show that African solutions can work, and that they can work better than anything imposed from the outside. Of course, the road ahead won't be without obstacles. The logistical and political challenges of building and maintaining such a vast network of infrastructure are immense. But for leaders like Traoré, the risks are worth it. Because what's at stake isn't just the economic future of Burkina Faso or the Sahel. It's the possibility of a new era for Africa, one where the continent finally takes control of its own destiny. But the critics are saying African nations will always need aid, just like they need now from Morocco. Is that true? The world talks about the Sahel as if it's a patient on life support, forever dependent on foreign intervention to survive. Analysts wring their hands, headlines scream of instability, and aid agencies draft endless reports. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. The Sahel isn't dying. It's smoldering, waiting for the right conditions to ignite. Morocco isn't coming to rescue the Sahel like a savior descending from the heavens. It's coming with something far more powerful, a matchstick, daring the region to light the bonfire of its potential. Let's get one thing straight. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are not helpless. The narrative that paints the Sahel as perpetually in need of saving ignores the raw strength, resilience, and resources these nations possess. What they lack is not capability, but opportunity. Decades of being locked out of global trade, stifled by dependency on Western aid, and subjected to the whims of international geopolitics have kept the Sahel's potential bottled up. The region isn't short on ambition, it's short on the means to realize it. Ibrahim Traoré understands this better than most. His leadership style isn't about begging for solutions. It's about finding partners who respect the Sahel's ability to stand on its own. Morocco, with its Atlantic initiative, isn't swooping in to dictate terms or impose conditions. Instead, it's offering a platform, a way for the Sahel to unleash its dormant power. The Dakar port isn't just a port, it's a spark plug. It's the infrastructure that will allow the Sahel to connect with global markets, turning its natural wealth into economic leverage. Take the region's resources, for instance. The Sahel is rich in commodities the world craves: gold, uranium, and agricultural products that could transform local economies. Yet these resources have historically been extracted and exported in raw form, with profits flowing outward instead of building wealth within. Why? Because the region has lacked the infrastructure to process these resources locally, and the access to trade routes that would allow it to negotiate on equal terms. Morocco's plan changes that dynamic. By providing a direct connection to the Atlantic and industrial zones for value-added production, the Sahel will no longer be a source of cheap exports. It will become a producer of finished goods that command higher prices on the global market. But let's not stop at resources. The Sahel's greatest untapped potential lies in its people. The youth population in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger is booming, full of energy and creativity waiting to be harnessed. These young people don't need handouts. They need tools, training, and opportunities to thrive. That's where Morocco's initiative shines. The infrastructure isn't just about moving goods, it's about moving people into roles where they can innovate, manage, and lead. Vocational training programs tied to the dangled port will equip Sahelians with skills that don't just support the project, but transform their communities. Critics might argue that the Sahel will always need help, that it will always fall back into a cycle of dependency. But this view underestimates the resilience of its people and the momentum that comes with self-reliance. Morocco isn't offering aid. It's providing the infrastructure that allows the Sahel to take the reins. This isn't about creating dependency. It's about creating a foundation for independence. When a farmer in Niger can export processed grains instead of raw harvests, when a miner in Burkina Faso can refine and package gold for international markets, when a young entrepreneur in Mali can launch a logistics company serving the Atlantic corridor, that's when the Sahel's bonfire of potential becomes a blazing reality. There's also a symbolic power to this partnership. Morocco's approach sends a message that Africa doesn't need to look outward for solutions. By collaborating with its neighbors, Morocco is showing that African nations can support each other in ways that are empowering, not exploitative. The Sahel doesn't need Western saviors. It needs African allies who recognize its worth and invest in its future. And for those who still doubt the Sahel's ability to stand tall, consider this. The only thing it's lacking is a fair shot. The West has historically controlled the trade routes, dictated the terms of economic engagement, and profited from the Sahel's resources while leaving it to deal with the fallout. Morocco's initiative isn't just a lifeline, it's a rebalancing of power. It's giving the Sahel the chance to trade on its own terms, to produce and innovate locally, and to chart a future that belongs to its people. In the end, the Sahel doesn't need saving. It needs the chance to save itself. Morocco is offering the matchstick, but it's up to the Sahel to strike it. The potential is there, smoldering, ready to ignite into something extraordinary. What we're witnessing isn't just an economic shift. It's the start of a revolution in how African nations see themselves, not as patients on life support, but as powerhouses waiting to be unleashed. And what happens to the West in the meantime? The West, once the conductor of Africa's geopolitical orchestra, now watches helplessly from the sidelines as Ibrahim Traoré and Morocco clasp hands, moving to a rhythm that seems alien to Western ears. This isn't just an alliance, it's a performance, a calculated choreography that digs deeper into the soil where colonialism, imperialism, and neo-colonial greed are buried. Each step of this walk is a defiance, a disruption, and perhaps most importantly, a eulogy. But whose grave are they walking on? The answer lies in the long shadow cast by Western domination in Africa. For centuries, Europe and later the United States dictated the terms of Africa's political and economic existence. The so-called scramble for Africa carved up a continent rich in resources, reducing its nations to pawns in a game they never asked to play. Colonialism may have officially ended decades ago, but its ghosts linger in the form of economic dependency, exploitative trade agreements, and a steady stream of external interference disguised as aid. Traoré and Morocco aren't just partnering to build trade routes, they're staging an exorcism. By bypassing Western-controlled systems and creating alternatives rooted in African solidarity, they're driving out the ghosts of a broken past. The dangled port isn't just a piece of infrastructure, it's a statement. It says that Africa doesn't need Western approval to thrive. It's an obituary for the systems that kept African nations subservient to foreign powers. For decades, the West positioned itself as Africa's savior, swooping in with aid packages and development programs that often did more harm than good. But these so-called lifelines were always tethered to strings, pulling African economies into a web of dependency. Now Morocco and the Sahel are cutting those strings, choosing to build their own lifeline, a direct route to independence that doesn't require Western validation. Let's not forget the symbolism of Traoré's leadership in this. As the youngest leader in Africa, he represents a generation that refuses to accept the narratives of the past. He's not interested in being lectured about democracy by nations whose own histories are riddled with hypocrisy. Instead, he's focused on building partnerships that respect Africa's sovereignty. His embrace of Morocco's initiative is a deliberate rejection of the West's paternalistic approach to the continent. It's a declaration that Africa is capable of solving its own problems, on its own terms. And Morocco? It's the perfect partner for this funeral march. Unlike Western powers, which view Africa primarily through the lens of resource extraction and geopolitical competition, Morocco sees the Sahel as a collaborator, not a commodity. By investing in infrastructure that empowers the Sahel to access global markets independently, Morocco is proving that partnerships don't have to be predatory. This isn't just business, it's a reclamation of agency. And the bad news for the West is, it is unstoppable. Do you think it will be possible to end the wave of new leadership in Africa? Do you hope to see change in Africa because of this? Let us know in the comments section. Are Morocco and Terror creating a new Africa? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.